Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. And you know, the film evidently it's a balancing act, mainly between. It's a chamber piece with three characters, and we are very fortunate to have two here. And the third one, Mia, is in spirit, and we will talk about her craft also. Thank you. And thank you. I would like to start by saying that the majority of the parts on the film, I wrote them for the actors, straight for them from the beginning. And I'll start with Oscar. We met the first time at my house, and it was a very peculiar afternoon. You want to talk a little bit about it?
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for that welcome.
Oscar Hernandez Isaac in the house.
Wow, it's amazing to be here. We met over 2 years ago. I went over to Guillermo's house. It was just a general meeting, the dreaded general, and for both of us. But I happened to be in town, and I went over to Bleak House, Guillermo's strange house of oddities. And I walked in.
And actors.
And actors as well, even odder. And I walked in, greeted by the Elephant Man sitting there, life-sized. And we went into your kitchen, and we ordered Cuban food, and over lechon asado, and arroz y frijoles. Platanitos fritos. We just started talking about our lives. We didn't talk about movies or acting or anything. We just started talking about our fathers, and about being fathers, and about passing on, the fear of passing on some of the the shadow and the pain that we've endured with having these big figures in our lives.
Latin fathers.
With Latin fathers, man. No, fuck. And that kind of fear of like, is it inevitable that we're going to pass that kind of thing on? And and also talking about like spiritual journeys and coming from a place of a lot of religious trauma as well. And
Catholic, Latin Catholic.
I mean, for me, Latin evangelical was even worse, even kookier.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then it was at the end of this conversation that Guillermo said, "Cabrón, you need to play Victor Frankenstein in my movie." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "I'm making this movie, and this is what it's going to be about. It's going to be about this exact thing that we're talking about, and I think you have to be him." And then he gave me Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and the Tao Te Ching, and he said, "Read these, and we'll talk." And that was the beginning.
Yes, and I think the beauty of this, the process when you write for an actor is I tend to see their eyes, and if the eyes contain the essence of the character, that's already 80% there, because most of film is looking at or being looked at, is eyes. And if the eyes are alive with that energy, then it's good. And both this gentleman and Mia have a gift of the most beautiful eyes to film I've ever had the privilege to shoot. And from then on, we started constructing the character. And
I remember you did say one thing really interesting early in that. I remember even being by the stairs.
I said, "I'll pay for the food."
You're going to pay for the food, personally, from here on out. Which is very important. But then you also said, "I want to see how far we can push. We can push an audience into being with somebody, and then when they turn and go really dark, how far we can push that." That was early on. You thought
early on, and the structure of the two characters have a really interesting structure, because when we start, Victor, like in the book, looks like a beatific, almost Jesus, with the window behind his head that looks like a halo, and saying, "I was born." And
when we were shooting, Guillermo was like, "It would make this one Mexican very happy if you moved a little bit here so that it's right behind your head." I remember that.
And I said, you think you're following Jesus, and then you realize you're following Charles Manson. But the beauty of that, and the two arcs, and I want to say, the energy of the film is contained in the three first words that the creature speaks: Victor, Elizabeth, and friend. Because that's how he constructs the world. And I think that having them here, it's very easy to understand. They are contained always in the same mirror. They're the same persona, just like the Father and the Son in Catholic religion are consubstantial. So are Victor and the creature. And they realize they need each other towards the end. Like any story with a father or a son, you realize that a soul has been divided in two. And that leads me to this brilliant man. You know, originally the part of the creature was written for another actor. 9 weeks before we started shooting, said actor dropped out. And let's hear it for the boy. I want to ask him to tell a little story that precedes this movie, and it has to do with the Priscilla makeup trailer. You want to?
Yes, I quite arrogantly inserted myself into this movie years before. I had read, when I had made my first movie, The Kissing Booth, I had read this, thank you, that's right, Netflix, baby. I was reading tweets about myself because I'm insane and an actor. And one of the tweets said, this plank of wood is so boring he could play nothing but Frankenstein's creature. I'll never forget that. And I remember reading it when I was like 22 and I was like, that's a great idea. Then when we got to...
Reviews, very useful.
Then I was in Toronto shooting Priscilla with the same crew that did the hair and makeup and the set design for this. And I was in the makeup trailer putting my wig on to play Elvis. And I remember saying, what are you guys doing next? And they said, well, we're doing Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. And I was sort of in the voice at the time when I was doing this thing. And the thing that I employed when I played him was this sort of great arrogance in a way. And I remember saying, I'm supposed to be in that. And she was like, did you audition? And I was like, no, but I'm meant to be in that movie. And then she said, well, no, we have an actor. And I was like, yeah, I know. And then we never talked about it, and then the time passed, and I'm not quite sure why I said it. And then about roughly a year later, I was in Australia shooting a TV show, and I got a
great TV show, by the way.
Yeah, The Narrow Road to the Deep North. If you haven't seen it, it's on Amazon. Thank you. No one's seen that. But I got this phone call from my agent, and it said, "There's a script in your inbox, and it's Frankenstein, and you need to read it tonight, and you need to talk to Guillermo tomorrow morning at 5 a.m." And it was like 100 and how many pages?
152.
152 pages. And I had a very little amount of time, but and then I read it, and it was to play the creature, and we spoke in the morning on the phone, and then you know the story from there, because I thought after I hung up the phone that there was no world in which I was going to be a part of the movie.
But Oscar and I were already intensely working together. I can say that we became brothers through making the movie. I consider him family. And we were constantly communicating, texting. Each of the actors got a package of books from me, and we talked about this or that. And Oscar was part of this quest. I was interviewing this actor, that actor, and I would say, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And after I hung up with Jacob, I said, we have it. We got him. Because I was saying the creature can be either Adam or Jesus. And I wrote him and said, I think we got both. And I want to talk about one thing before we dive into the craft, but the delicate thing about this is the structure of the creature and the father, are done in reverse. Like Victor has all the words, all the notions, all the certainty, and starts very big. We looked at Oliver Reed to make him really bolsterous and big, but sort of heightened reality, because he's remembering the memory of his childhood, or when he was young, is him remembering. It's shot very actively. We can talk about this and that, but that tone starts big and he goes very small at the end. The forgiveness scene, the pardon scene is so delicate and small. And the creature has no words on the beginning. It has only heart. and then gains awards and goes up and becomes more and more complex as a movie. You know, when he first is a notion, then there are words, then there comes the notion of being the child of a charnel house, and finally it ends in grace with the son. But they both come to this quiet scene at the end, and a father and a son needs to coexist, and the first scene we shot was the final scene. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Why don't you guys talk about it? You know what you did.
Tell all the people. You know what we're gonna talk about.
No, there was this kind of, for me, the experience was, I wasn't quite sure how the creature sounded. I had a rough idea, and it was one of the heaviest sort of dialogue scenes. And one evening, Guillermo said, hey, we're gonna shoot the forgiveness scene tomorrow morning. And I said, okay, and then we shot the scene, and it was one of those great moments where you didn't anticipate what was going to happen, and everything. We were in the sort of cabin of the ship, and you could have heard a pin drop. It was our first time acting together, and we'd only crossed each other in the hallway of the production office and sort of shared a hug. And I was so nervous I was non-verbal at that point, essentially, which was perfect. Because I had seen every movie that Oscar's ever made, and Inside Llewyn Davis is a perfect performance. Ex Machina is a perfect performance. This is no joke. You know, this is an actor. This man played Hamlet. This is a real actor. You know,
and Lenny, Officer Fartman as well.
The range. So I was quite nervous, but there was this amazing thing that happened as I was walking in front of him. I had my hand out, and I was still sort of testing movements out while we were in the scene, and Oscar just reached out and grabbed my finger. And it wasn't just a gesture in character, it was a gesture that he had my back, you know, through the process. And that was a really beautiful thing. And then
the neuroses set in. No, this was a scene that I'd obviously been thinking about so much. You know, I remember the first time we read it.
We edited and moved it around. Everything.
Yeah, but the first time we read it was in New York, you know, a year before, and we were both in tears, crying, you know, because it's just everything we had talked about, that idea of grace and, you know, regret. And so there was a lot of focus, and I was trying to stay in the zone all day, and pulled from a lot of different personal things in that moment, you know, loved ones that I've been at the deathbed of, and what that was like, and we did it, and it was a really moving experience, and we finished. And then the next day we were just...
No, but hold on. You say, we finished the day, and Jacob says, I have nothing else to give.
Oh, right.
I was exhausted. You had cried all day. And I go, I understand.
We cried all day, exactly. And then the next day, I was supposed to basically just be a kind of a dead body in the back. You just wanted to get an insert of the fingers.
Well, the hand grabbing the fingers, and we can talk about why, but that was the trigger for the audience.
Yeah.
Permission to cry.
Permission to cry.
Because I saw that gesture. When he was passing by, he grabbed it, and I went...
Which was impulse. Which was just impulse.
Well, I was fascinated by those fingers. You know, like I remember him walking in first, and I remember him just walking in fingers first. And I was just like, what is happening? And I just...
What the fuck?
What the fuck? But I was like, why is this so moved? I was so moved by it. I wasn't expecting it. It was so graceful.
Those cuticles.
Yeah, I got a little thing and started doing... No, yeah, and so I just needed to touch him. And so then what was amazing is Guillermo quilts the movie while we're shooting it. He's taking takes as we're shooting it and putting it into the edit. So sometimes while shooting a scene, you can see it forming, you know, on the laptop. You'll bring it out because you have your editor, you have, you know, and that's an incredible thing.
Sometimes we edit in the video assist.
Yeah, you'd be editing in the video assist because the camera's always moving to see that the flow's going. And so that next day, you showed me the scene with like tent music, and I was like, was that take 5? You know? And you're like, yeah, I think so. I was like, okay. And there's something about it was like, oh no, I got very self-conscious about it, and I was like, I don't think that's take 5. I thought take 5 was a good one. Like, it's take 5. And then I was like, let's look. We looked at the takes and it wasn't take 5. And then we saw take 5 and it wasn't that much better, you know? And I was like, okay. And I was like, okay. And he's like, good, it's good. And then I went and I sat down on my little bed, waiting to do the insert. And then Guillermo comes over and he says, what's the matter? And I was like, I don't know, I'm feeling a little self-conscious. And he says, well, you are an actor. And I said, I know, but I feel like maybe there was something I didn't do. Maybe I should have like looked up when I said, and you said, no, those are all ideas. You know, I feel like we got it. I feel like we got it. Go just, go to lunch right now and we'll come back and do this insert. So I went back and, I had some chips and I watched some like movies or something and I relaxed and I came back on set and you go, we're gonna do it again. And it was set up for the close-up again,
Yeah, meanwhile, I'm in the makeup trailer. No one has told me.
He's like, and you said to me, we're gonna do it again. We already got something. If we do it and nothing comes out, it's fine. It's a win-win. I get to make fun of you for the rest of your life. Where we'll be fine. And if something does come out, great. And so we did it again.
Guillermo was very specific when he wants something, incredibly specific. You know what it is. You can't get around it. And this was the first time he was unspecific. He kind of came to me. He's like, "Hey, young fella, we're just gonna get this. This is a close up. It's just a pickup, but we're just gonna get it from the scene yesterday. And so just come in and just sit here, and we'll just go." And then I sat down and was back in the scene that we were doing the day before, and neither of them told me that it was for pickups. So I thought that I was the worst actor in the world, and that the voice was wrong because he had texted me that night, just more gravel. He'd said more gravel, so I was like, my voice is wrong, my movement is wrong, I have no business being here. I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I gotta come home, like I can't.
Which is how I felt when I watched the scene edited together. I'm like, I'm the worst actor that's ever happened.
So all our insecurity was pooling into this thing.
Which was good for the scene.
Right.
And just so we know, that's what ended up in the film. No, and then what I would like to take a step back, because also their movement is very different, in the way Oscar, we discussed Victor was moving like a rock star in a stage. He was, the first lecture is shot like a concert and so forth, and we'll talk about that. You want to talk about that a little?
Yeah. I mean, that was something that you talked about, really, that moment when the ball comes down and you see Victor at his prime, that it is a memory. It's what it felt like to him to remember that he had command of his fate in that moment. And, it's filmed like a rock concert. It's an aria as well. It's this, you can imagine a tenor singing that moment, right? And the way the camera's swooping around, and also using that's when you started calling me La Cobra Cubana, and so like encouraging me to like walk around like a bullfighter sometimes, and
more hips.
Yeah, more hips. And so yeah, it was an incredible thing to just like really be pushed into this very expressive way of being. We're not interested in the mad scientist, we're interested in the passionate artist.
Mm-hmm. Which becomes a dictator. But then, by contrast and beauty, when we started working on the creature, we discussed, when I was doing Nightmare Alley, I said to Bradley Cooper, you need to get punched on the nose. I said, you need to take boxing. Because if you have never been punched on the nose, you don't know how a guy in the 30s would handle himself. So he took boxing, and he got punched in the nose after that. And the instinct with Jacob was to utilize Buto. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Buto is this, Guillermo had the great idea to sort of study Buto. I had these images in my head from the first time that I read the script that were kind of like, there's this acting book, I'm not sure what it's called, but it's by this guy called Michael Chekhov, and it has these sketches of body shapes in it. And I remember when I read the screenplay the first time, I saw versions of these physical states of being, but I didn't know how to articulate them in my body. And then Guillermo had the idea of studying Buto, which was something I was sort of familiar with. I'd seen on YouTube and things like that, but it's this Japanese art form. It's not really a dance. It's about creating a moving image in the body, which is sort of based around the reanimation of a corpse. So it's about moving, isolating different parts of your body externally and internally, your lungs, your organs, and putting them into different states. So I remember I was walking around in a room for sort of hours, and my teacher, she was a great teacher, she would say, there's a bee in your ear, there's a bee buzzing in your ear, and then she would say, your lungs are bellows. Your lungs are bellows, and there's a bee buzzing in your ear, and your left foot is a steam train. And you start to, it sounds crazy, but you start to, when you consider your body like that, and you move into a state of flow, you can start to isolate the different parts of your muscles, and they start to work sort of in contention with each other and against each other, which is sort of the nature of being constructed of different parts and different pieces and different memories. And so that was really helpful to kind of isolate the physical experience, I suppose, so that he almost moves like a marionette, but the marionette master is independent of his thought, you know.
There's a great moment you discussed one time when you saw yourself reflected in a plate of glass. You want to talk about that moment? It's so beautiful. When in the bathroom, yeah.
The bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, something I didn't actually tell you that I only just remembered was you said to study Bhutto, which is so interesting. I have to show you this video. Before I came to Toronto, I went to Palm Springs, and I sort of hid out in this house, and I got a bunch of I think the brand is like Krylon paint.
Yes.
And I painted my whole body
white
and my face, and it looked so much like a Bhutto thing. And I was practicing movement on a video camera. But when I was in Toronto, I felt like I was quite conscious in the movement, and I was being deliberate about it. So I took a really hot bath one night, like really hot, to the point of sort of passing out. And I eventually sort of passed out in the bath, and I slipped out like a strange, like, I don't know, a newborn. And I slipped out of the bathtub and kind of caught myself. And when I caught myself, I looked up and I had this big mirror in this bathroom, and I saw his sort of, the shape of his spine looking back at me. And then before I knew it, I'd walked up and down the 3 stories of my house. Thank you, Netflix.
There's a French word for that. It's called perks.
But I'd walked up and down the 3 flights over and over, and didn't realize I was kind of in this half delusional passing out state. And it was the walk that I sort of carried into the movie came from a hot bath, you know. So there's so many little things when you're open and your curiosity is open. When you have the ability with a character that's written the way that you've written it, that's everything. You know?
Yeah.
Hot baths, everybody.
Hot baths. And
And big houses.
Now, there's a beautiful moment structurally in the script that is very hard to play, but is exceptionally played by both of them. And it's the moment when Victor has experienced everything. And he's taking the creature to the cell for the first time, and the creature is a baby. It's completely blank. This is not a reanimated corpse with stitches. It's a newly formed soul. And anybody here knows how hard it is to play nothing. It's extremely, much more difficult than playing something. And you have a character that has achieved the goal of his life, and another one that is starting. So you know they will be reconcilable. And I really love the way that scene occurs, because they will not be able to see each other face to face. I would like to talk about that moment for Victor first, in the staircase, and how he basically is the end of a story right when another one is beginning.
Yeah. It's pretty cruel what happens there. He's like, this is sunlight. Now go down to the basement for the rest of your life.
And this is our shackle. You like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Just before I get into all that too, it's just, you know, hearing you talk about all that, it's also what Guillermo's written into it. You know, even talking about the rock star thing, it's not just an aesthetic idea. It's, you know, the way that he is the modern Prometheus. So there's this engine that starts in him that kind of never stops. And you see that's what the rock star thing's about. It's
until the end.
Yeah, it's like this fire that just, it's like an engine that goes and is like unable to take in anything. Like, you know, I think what happens in that moment is Victor finds himself treating him like his child, and like love emerges, and that's something that's just, there's no room for something like that, you know. And I think it very much freaks him out. It's like, this is not what I wanted. I'm not interested in having a child, like a baby, and this wasn't the achievement that I had wanted. The achievement was the making of the thing, and it's alive now. But after that, you know, and I think I've had a lot of friends that have seen the film too, and they call, you know, and say like, wow, it makes me feel very guilty as a parent, because it's these feelings that come up, right? These, you know, this is the extreme version, but it's as a parent myself, you know.
The only unlicensed profession on earth.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, you think like, how can you treat someone like? But it's like, if I'm really honest with myself, there's been those moments where you just lose your patience, or, you know, and so that kind of postpartum feeling when he walks away and walks up the steps, you know, I know in my mind I was like speaking that tomorrow speech, you know, that just like pure nihilism, and that is, we see Victor kind of move over into that almost Marquis de Sade nihilistic philosophy of, you know, of just, of like, there's nothing, you know, cruelty is the truest thing there is. And so, yeah, it is that moment of him just kind of letting go and like falling into the void as this person starts becoming a person.
Yeah, and now I want to talk about that, but I want to also relay one thing. When he first walked into the set, full on makeup, I have never, I mean, no, 2 times in my life I've been that moved. When I saw Ron Perlman as Hellboy, I was like a kid, I was like, my hero. And when he walked into the set, because he walked on character, and I grabbed his hand and I did this, and I hugged him. And because the character I've been chasing for 50 years, I just stepped into the set. That's how I felt about it. And I think that I would love to talk about this moment, because the transitions he does as a baby, grabbing the shackles, or discovering water, or not wanting Victor to leave, or being touched for the first time carefully, is so beautiful. And that process of innocence and immediacy, you want to talk a little bit about finding it?
That actually started in the screen test, which you can see in the document. I watched the documentary the other day that's made for after the film on Netflix. And
it's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. And
subscribe now, only $12.99.
But I was watching the footage back, and you would say, you know, I remember walking into the room, and I wanted to sort of, I didn't want anyone to see him not as a creature, so I came in as him. There was no other way really to come into the room. And the fear and the nervousness that I felt, knowing that it was a 50-year dream, and knowing that he was the sort of last piece in this puzzle, I felt for real kind of how he feels in the world. I felt so quiet and so small and so meek, and in that, with the crew sitting there and the cameras, little twitches and things sort of started to develop. And then for the sort of infant state that you're talking about, the baby state, I watched a lot of my friends' babies, and my dog was a really big one, because she's so immediate, and it's unquestionable. She never puts the brakes on her love. Every day she leads with this sort of innate curiosity, particularly toward me. So in that case, I'm Victor and she's the creature, and I could watch her and see sort of how she serves me. And But if she sees a hummingbird fly, she kind of just goes straight for it. And when a baby sees something glowing, it's head, it's like, or it's eyes, head, hand, and they grab it, But I have to say, I was thinking, you were talking about what I'm talking about. None of it is possible. All these ideas and the things that you build, and the force of the soul of the character, and all these things. None of it is possible unless you have a Guillermo del Toro who completely builds the world, first of all, in his mind, through curiosity and creativity, and then employs people that he's been training and curating a crew for over 30 years to hand make his dreams. So when we step into the set, it's a 4D experience. There is a castle with moss in the cracks and water dripping from melting snow in the ceiling and a running river through it and burning fires in the corner. And he used single source lighting, which I've learned on this press tour. It's the lights that they pre-lit the night before so that the set could be lit in a way that we wouldn't have to see any C-stands or any sort of camera equipment. So the light is all natural. So when we step into that set, it's fully designed and catered for us to be believable. None of those tricks and things would work if we were in front of green screens, it wouldn't work.
A fucking tennis ball.
Fucking tennis ball.
Now, they're marking me that we have to wrap, which is a fucked up thing, but may I take a moment to acknowledge one of the greatest, most natural, most real actors working today, which is Mia Goth. I will finish with one thing. When I talked to Jacob, the thing that made me know he was the one is when he said, "This creature is more me than me." And I understood immediately. He understood what I felt. And so is Victor. Oscar and I made the deal to not be the actor and the visionary. I said, we have to both tell each other everything we have fucked up in our lives. We have to say, be humans. I don't want to be a genius. I want to not know. I want you to not know. I need you as a person on this. And I will say, the creature and Victor are more me than me. So thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.